Welcome back to part 2 of this amazing interview with Philip. We are still here. We are still helping, giving you value, sharing insights. This is the continuation of last week's video. So if you missed that, please go back and re-listen because that was really an amazing first part. And we are going to dive into the second part again. Have your pen ready, have a paper ready, take notes and take action because we are about to hear the second part of a success story of how do you sell a business in a crisis by only being 2 days a year in your business and still making a lot of money. And Philip is going to share his secrets again. Welcome, Philip. Let's go back to the business scaling piece because you have really, we heard it already, a success story until selling the company. So before you sold it, of course, you had to grow it to a certain level to make it attractive to investors. So once you start, and you mentioned before you started out by yourself, right? So when was the point when you started like getting other people? Because you also mentioned you should not do everything yourself. You should really start getting rid of a lot of the tasks very fast. So when was this point for you that you started like outsourcing things, hiring people? Like what did you do precisely? Did you hire immediately people or did you start another way?
Well, the problem was that based on my parents and their advice, I had to study. So I had my business and I finished school and then I went to the university. And I went to university maybe from 8 till 2 or sometimes from 2 till 8. You know, it's not a full-time job. You have some on and off times. And all around that, like studying, I tried to deal with customers. But I also wasn't as flexible as I had to be because sometimes the customers weren't ready when I was ready. And therefore, I needed to have people to fill in the gaps. And I didn't want to spend a lot of money and I didn't want to like incorporate all these like fixed costs. Therefore, I worked with freelancers. I had a couple of freelancers that I formed a pool with. And I said, you know what, here's like, they all had the same. We were basically all doing the same. They were not necessarily local people, but like regional people. So I said, let's set up a virtual pool. So we all take like orders out of the pool. If some customer calls and it's our customer and we figure out, well, this is something I could actually take care of myself, we'll just get the job done and that's it. But let's say there's an order available, something needs to be done immediately, but we cannot do it. Then we just throw that order in this virtual pool and somebody else that has free time at the moment picks up the order and does the work. Then we'll just split the profits, 30% for that person that actually acquired the deal, and then 70% of the money for the person that did the job. And by doing that and being able to sell quite a lot, I sold more than I could ever do. So I had a lot of people like doing all that work for me, and I gave them like only 70% of the profits. But let's look at it. If you do the job yourself, you make 100% of the profit or the deal, whatever. Yeah. So the revenue is yours, 100%. But let's say you have like 3 deals at a time, then you make 30, 30, 30 gives you 90. But by the 4th order that you have like somebody else working on, you make 120% of whatever. And you don't do anything because you can already look for new jobs or you can go back to university and stuff like that. So scaling happens only if you get other resources and make him work in your interest. And in the beginning, I used freelancers, and then later I actually hired people, like put them on the regular payroll. And once I had all these people, I figured out how to get them do stuff without asking me all the time how to do it these days. And then we figured out that we need like standards and processes. So we introduced something that I had learned from a customer that I actually dealt with back in the days. It was a pharmaceutical industry company from the pharmaceutical industry, and it was called Standard Operating Procedures. So we actually set up a rule book on how stuff is going to be done in my company. How long does it take? How many people do we need? What kind of side effects do we need to communicate to the customer? So for example, if you restart a server, there is a time where they cannot work. If you talk to them up front, you can like schedule the work better because it needs to align with their work in progress and whenever their business hours are. But all of this has been worked out by us, and that gave me a lot of like control of what's happening without being around, because as everyone stuck to the rule book, they didn't need me to help them all the time. Like, how do we do this? How do we do that? I said, just look at the book that we wrote. And then what you need to do is when you work out these standard operating procedures and you find a better way because technology advances, customers like circumstances change, you get better skills and you have a better idea, check it and then redefine the standard operating procedure. Do not stick to the standard operating procedure, but have a couple of people doing it a different way. That's not scalable. You need to have one master approach that needs to be done again and again and again. And if you have improvements, you need to improve the master approach after you tested it at least once prior to like updating the master approach. And it invested quite a lot of time, invest a lot of like brain power in this, because it's a lot of work to work all these things out. But once that was all set, it was very easy to get stuff done with a very high probability of getting it perfectly done. Not just done, but perfectly done. That leads to less customer service requirements. So people call after like you render a service less in and complain about stuff. So you need no fixing time. You need no like what's that called? You don't give them money back because they don't like what you did and stuff like that. You just you just work professional, like more professional, and you get better referrals because professionals are always referred to others. That brings me back to what you said earlier, like about specialization and generalization. If you're a specialist, you get more referrals because people like to refer specialists. Nobody really refers somebody that does everything, because that's kind of risky because you can't be good in all things.
Exactly. And this is really just a great, I mean, I just want to share another example to add to this, because people always say that, you know, like once you scale, you do that. I would even recommend start early. Like the faster you write down your standard procedures, even if you're just by yourself in that moment, it prepares you to hire people. I'll give you an example. I'm working with a coach. I was working internationally, and he had an assistant for many, many years, right? And that assistant knew the procedures. She never wrote them down, but she knew them because she worked for so long for him, right? Now she left the company. Now what? Nothing is documented. So now we had to hire somebody new, which we haven't done in quite some years. So we had to first of all get the requirements down, like what do you actually look for, right? And then the question came up, like, where's the documentation? Like, which documentation? Like, yeah, how do you do things? Yeah, it's really, really simple. He thought that. I started writing down what he told me, and whenever he got the review, he was like, oh no, there's an exception for that company, and that company has to be invoiced differently, and they also have an exception. I was like, holy shit. Like the more I keep asking, the more exceptions are found, right? And I think what many people are not aware of is how many extra loops you develop in your business. And then I also question, do we need that? Like now you have those 20,000 exceptions, right? Do you really need that? Well,
because if you have a lot of exception, that usually proves that your customer avatar is not really clear. You're working with a lot of people from all kinds of backgrounds. So better define your customers and then figure out who does actually fit this profile and who does not. And by telling a lot of people to no longer call you, no longer work with you, you're going to make more money. That sounds weird in the beginning, especially if you have no customers these days and you're trying to build something up, or you have a lot of customers and all of a sudden you're like actively doing stuff to reduce the amount of customers you're working with. That sounds weird, but I tell you, that's exactly what we did in 2016, and that helps you a lot. You need less people to do the work, so your payroll, like your cost of the payroll declines, and then you also have like other benefits, because usually people that do not perfectly match your like ideal customer profile will never be totally happy with what you do. So they require a lot of additional service. They call you a lot of times because they have questions. They don't know how to handle the stuff you just delivered. Then they have like complaints about stuff because they don't figure out why they need it, or they do use it in a different way than you intended it to be used and stuff like that. So the better you focus on a certain type of customer, the less problems you're going to have. And what you just said is brilliant. You got to start setting up the processes right from the start. What you do is, for example, let's say you're going to invoice somebody. What you need to have like an invoicing system. That means you need to be able to put a customer's address on a piece of paper. You might need to add some information on what you sold, like products and services. You might need to add a couple of like numbers, like prices and quantities and stuff like that. You might need to ship it somewhere. You might need to print a double piece of paper, whatever. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done right from the start with your first customer. And that same work is going to be required of you once you have your 10,000th customer. Therefore, this work needs to be documented. What you got to do is you start a screen recorder and simply go through the program, because then afterward, you're going to have a lot of recordings, and people that do that on a daily basis will never look at the recordings again. But once you have to like get somebody to jump in, maybe that person gets sick for a couple of weeks, or maybe that person leaves the company that is usually doing the job, somebody else still needs to be trained, but these people can be trained by the videos, and they're not trained like generally on how to use software, but on how to do what's necessary for your business in a way that it was always done, so your customers don't get confused, and it's all in the recordings. And the most important thing is, because you might get it wrong if I don't give you that piece of advice, you're not doing the recordings. The recordings are done by the people that are doing the job. If you're just by yourself right now, that's going to be you. But the moment you have a second person working for you, that person is doing the recordings. Because if somebody else is doing the recordings, you have more time for strategic things, and you have more time to grow that company, and you have somebody else that will look at it from a different angle. And that gives you better recordings. And it saves you a lot of time, and it saves you a lot of money, because people working for you are usually cheaper than yourself. If you do the math right. A lot of people don't know that they're losing a lot of money because they think their time is free. But that's a different story.
So true. And I mean, guys, straight up, I mean, even if it feels like work, and I know we have a lot of right-brainers listening to that, right? And I know that you're always telling me like, but I need my creativity space. You don't need that all the time, trust me. Because if you are so flexible in your processes, you lose so much time. Like, I mean, just imagine you have to research a specific thing that you need for a text, right? Do you still remember that next year? I don't. And I'm really good at memorizing stuff, right? But the next year I was like, I know I had that stuff already on my desk. Where was this again? This takes so much time if you have to search that stuff, and then you have to re-Google and redo it. And you know you already did it anyway, right? Just document it in the moment you do it. Next time you were like, there was that thing again, right? 1, 2, 3, done. And so this is what many people underestimate. And also I think that lack of processes also shows a lack of leadership. Because why do you have 20,000 exceptions with your customers? Because they ask you and you accepted that. I mean, you have to say, guys, this is how we work. This is what we do. Follow the process. Trust us. We know what we do. And I think then you have a much better relationship. And if the customer doesn't want to follow, the question comes back to what you said. Is that really your customer if they don't follow your advice? Because they hire you for a certain reason. And if you cannot give them the guidance they need, maybe it's not your customer, right?
And that brings me back to sales, because the behavior of your customer is mainly influenced from the very first moment on you meet that person. So let's say you are like you have a lot of self-esteem. You do a very good sales presentation. You walk that customer through a vision on where he is right now, where he could go when he works with you, and what's going to happen, how you're going to do it, and stuff like that. The more you take the uncertainty out of that conversation, the more that customer is willing to follow you, because leadership does not work if nobody's willing to follow. And if people are willing to follow, you tell them this is going to happen and this is not going to happen. And then you will maybe lose a couple of them, but you will become more attractive to a lot of more, because that's how it is. If everyone gets the idea that you are like call it flexible, I would say unorganized and non-standardized, they might not want to work with you, because that's not professional. Just think about McDonald's. Try to go to McDonald's and say, you know what, I have an idea today. I'd like to have like a doner. That's something we have in Germany. Or you say, you know what, today I'm here for a pizza. They're going to look at you and say, we don't do pizza. And then you can argue with them, but they have a strong opinion on why they're not doing pizza. Therefore, you're never going to get pizza, but that's why everything else works that they do. You might not like the food, but a lot of people do. So don't try or make sure that people don't feel like triggered or encouraged to influence your line of products or services that you render. You define what you want to do, and then you find customers for exactly that. You might add an additional service after you got a lot of requests and you see a lot of business opportunity using the same equipment, using the same skills, using the same infrastructure that you have, but you don't start a second and a third and a fourth business within your business just because one person showed a little bit of interest in that particular service. Because there's no point. That's not scalable. That's going to cost you money. That's not going to make you money.
And that's a great point. I think another aspect that comes in why people are doing that and why people are influenced by a customer is desperateness, right? If you're desperate to get a job, you're more willing to give in to what the customer wants. What you have to understand is that people are not, I mean, a customer may take advantage of you because you're desperate, but they are not seeing you as like a strong authority if you are desperate, right? So I think it's very important to understand once you stand in your power and you, even if you're desperate and you need money, never, ever, ever show it, because you have to risk the fact that if you stand bold, that you will lose the customer. That's okay, but then you will also have a strong relationship. The question is, where does desperateness come from? And I think that comes from having too little leads, too little sales, right? That's how you get in that whole situation. So coming back to the sales piece, I mean, you already mentioned that, of course, once you scale, of course, you need to make sure, especially as the owner, that more sales come in, right? So did you see this as your top priority to get the sales in, or did you also delegate that very fast to your team?
Well, like looking back and talking to you right now, I have all these smart pieces of advice on how to do it professionally, but it took me like 20 years to figure it out. That's why when I'm talking to people that want to be coached by me, I said, you know what, you're not paying for me to talk to you for an hour or 2 hours. You're paying for 20 years of experience, because what I went through, you don't need to walk through yourself, because I can like speed up your process and speed up your like your traveling. I can get you to a different destination faster, because I can skip parts of this trip for you simply by telling you don't do that. And here are 4 areas in your business that you need to take a look at. The first one is marketing. You need to make sure that people are aware of you and become interested in what you have to offer. Then at the same, like the next thing is sales. You need to be able to convert interest into money, because when people talk to you, it's not enough that they like you, they need to buy from you. Then you need to sell it. Therefore, marketing and sales is important. But then it comes to implementation. It's not enough if you sell it, you also need to deliver, because otherwise you will not get like customers, they buy from you again. It's much more attractive to be in the reorder business than in the sales business, making sure that people actually like what you do and reorder it all of the time, because the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth order comes with less acquisition costs. Therefore, you make more money even though you don't change the pricing. You just have less money that you spend around that deal in order to make it happen. And then the fourth area is the cash flow part. A lot of people are, let's say, good in marketing, get a lot of leads, then they're good at sales because for some reason people buy from them. Then implementation is great, but their calculation is very horrible. That can happen if you try to take over the marketplace by very low prices. If you are a very small company, there is no chance you're ever going to win as a price leader. Therefore, moving into a market, competing on price is going to kill your business. You're going to have a lot of work, because everyone that wants to save money is trying to talk to you. They don't care about your marketing. They hear from other people that have no money that you are somebody to work with. They don't argue with you in sales, because if it's basically free, because you're cheaper than everyone else, they're going to buy from you no matter how great or bad you are when it comes to sales. Then the implementation part proves that it was a good choice, that they could get some good quality because you're an expert in the on the technical side of the business, but for some reason, no money is left in your bank or in your pocket because your calculation is no good. Therefore, one of these 4 areas is always the bottleneck in every single business. And depending on where your problem is, you just need to fix that first. And then you need to find somebody that can help you with that. If you get a lot of like calls, but you can't convert them, you have a sales problem. If nobody calls, you have a marketing problem. If everyone complains after you did the work, you have an implementation problem. And if you have no money in the bank, although you do a lot of work, you have a calculation or a financial problem, because there are various sides to this financial aspect. And once you understand where the problem is, you can look out for help. And that's the whole secret about this. Don't just work on every single part of your business. Focus on the thing that really is the biggest pain in your ass these days, and then fix that first. And then once you fix that, one of these other areas needs your attention, because in order to get better, you need to get better in every single area of that business every single day, but don't do it all at once. Focus and then take it bit by bit, step by step, whatever you want to do it. It's an incremental progress. It's not a big jump.
And guys, it will never stop. Let me be very honest. You will have different problems. You will have new things. There is not this perfect end state of like, hey, now everything runs and I never need to touch it. If you do that, you are basically already dying, because that means you're not growing anymore. So you always will have new problems. And I think that's, for me personally, that's the awesome thing about entrepreneurship, because you can solve problems every day. And for me, that's personally, that's a good feeling.
Exactly. And if you think that's not right because that sounds too theoretical, here's a practical piece of advice. Let's just assume implementation is great. Demand increases, more people want to work with you. What you got to do is you got to hire additional staff. That brings in new problems because that people have not the same amount of training as you have. Therefore, although there is a standard operating procedure in place, that person still needs to be like trained on the job and get some experience doing the job. And that brings down your performance, at least for a little piece, like a little part of the way, a little like period, whatever time-wise. So there's always going to be a problem. That's why you need to keep your eye open. That's why you also need to leave the operational part of the business, because like looking at the business while being caught up in it is kind of hard. If you're looking at it from the outside, like, okay, that part doesn't perform, that part doesn't perform, it's much easier. That's why, for example, I mean, in Germany, soccer is a very popular sport. The trainer never gets on the field because they need to look at the whole place. They don't look at defense. They don't look at offense. They don't look at midfield players. They look at everyone. They do not only look at the players, but they also look at all the other actors within that marketplace. Because no matter how good you are, other like your competitors are working and making progress as well. And somebody needs to be like so far away from the operational part of the business in order to keep an eye on every single variable within your marketplace. That's why you need to have people working for you. And here's a secret in case you are an entrepreneur. If you're working for somebody, just close your eyes because you're going to be frustrated afterwards. You're going to make the money not on the business, but on the people working for you. So you need to have more hands on deck in order to push your business forward. Because let's just say you make $10 an hour. That's a fine amount of money if you work a lot of hours. But let's say you have 10 people working 10 hours like every single day, and you only pay them like 7. That means you make like $3 profit on every single person per hour, and then like times all the people that work for you, you make a lot of money without touching anything.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of incentive in managing instead of like doing the work, because doing, you will only get from $10 to $11 after a couple of years. And if you are very good at negotiating, because you said, you know what, cost of living expenses and stuff like that increased, so I need a little bit of more money, but you're never going to get rich because your earning is like capped. There is a problem with it. But if you are the business owner, you can just hire more people and then make more money. And that's the power of scalability. And that only works if you attract enough business, and that's attracted by marketing and sales. But that is something that you need to be working on every single day. And if you don't know how to do it, just record a video like that. Get some exposure there. People might not like your video. People might not understand you. People might not care about what you say, but others might do. And those that do might want to work with you. And that's how it works. You don't know what works. That's why you need to do a lot of stuff. And doing a lot of stuff means outside of your business in order to promote your business, not inside your business. Because even if you have a clean desk every single night when you go at home, that's going to get you no customers on top.
So true.
But if you have a very messy desktop, because you're on the road every day talking to people, and at the end of the day, you just drop all their business cards on your desk, and then you're tired and you never clean that up. You still made better progress than somebody that has a clean desktop and went home and said, you know what, my office just looks great. Looking great and being rich is not necessarily the same thing.
I'm the type who always has a messy desk, but I'm ashamed about that, to be very honest, because it's the way I work, you know, and my chaos has some organization to itself, but I'm the only one who understands that. 2 points on that. First of all, what you just mentioned is brilliant, because first of all, most people underestimate how cheap you can get people today. I mean, I hear many times when people start like, yeah, but you know, it's expensive to hire people. You don't have to hire them on your payroll right away, right? You can outsource that to freelancers, to other people who only basically get paid when you send them over something. Of course, it requires that you have a standard operating procedures, because these people can only work when you tell them how they should do the work. So you have to put in a little bit of thought. And yes, it will take a little bit of time to put in the thought, but that is very well invested time. That saves you hours. I mean, just an example, right? If I implement systems and I implement a system 20 times, I know exactly what to click. I know all the settings. It is no big effort to just document this and screen record and say, this is exactly how it's done. Then I can define this as basically a questionnaire for the customer saying, look, this is all the information I need from you. Please fill it out, right? Then I take the questionnaire, I take the recording, I send it to a VA and say, do it. here's the login. Now I can sell something which maybe I calculated if I do it myself, it may take me 4 hours, maybe, because I'm an expert in that, right? Now my assistant may take 10 hours, but you know what? I pay her a fraction of what I am worth. So even if she takes 10 hours for the same task, it doesn't matter, you know, because it's so much cheaper. You have no idea how much profit margins you can suddenly get. And now the funny thing is, I can even get more because I don't have to spend those 4 hours. I just have to send it over and get it back, review it once, and that's it. And then in the meantime, I can do other stuff, which means I can sell much more. I can hire more than one person. If that one person is busy, I can hire a second and a third one. And I don't even have to do anything about that. And I think this is what most people underestimate, where it's like, yeah, but I have to do it myself. No, you don't. You just need to document your knowledge and transfer it to somebody. And I think training also, you mentioned it several times, I think training is a very important piece of that, but also, of course, having the right people. Now, I do know that you have a very interesting opinion about finding the right people. So could you explain to our listeners how you basically, also what is important for you in an employee that work with you, especially when you hire them in your own payroll? And what is your opinion about what if they don't work out? You know, like, because many people are afraid of like, now I invest that time, I find the person and now it doesn't work out, right? That's really frustrating for many people. So how do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, don't feel bad about working with people, because we pointed out all these benefits for you as an entrepreneur on how to work with people, but these people are also happy within that framework because you give them a security. That's very important to understand. It's not about taking advantage of other people. It's about offering opportunity to people who are not willing to take the risk on starting their own company. They could do that, but many just don't want to do it. Either they can't because they're lacking skills, or they don't have the attitude or mindset or whatever you want to call it. So don't feel bad about it. And that's the same thing when you hire people. If you have somebody, it's not just about attitude. They might they must have a matching mindset that should like somehow align with your mindset and the mindset of your colleagues. Otherwise, there's going to be tension within the office all the time. But hire for attitude, train for skill does not necessarily help if you need some expert, because let's say you want to have somebody to fly an airplane. The attitude itself isn't going to do the job done. You're going to have some skills. Otherwise, people are going to be dead sooner or later. And then once you hired somebody and you don't like that person, just let him go, because, you know, sometimes you just need to say, you know what, both of us made a major mistake. We both thought you could do the job. So let's just split. And that is something you just need to get over with. I mean, some people have problems firing people. I never had a problem, because you have to make a difference here between, you need to see the person and you need a quality of work. And if the quality of work does not fit what is required within your company, that person might be a nice person. It can still be a nice person, just at a different business. You can still keep in touch, but you cannot pay these people anymore, because you can't afford to lose money. Because if you keep or hold on to people that do not perform at the level of excellence that you set as a standard within your company, that is expected by your customers, you're going to lose a lot of customers simply because you held on to the wrong person for too long. So I'd say it's always good to monitor what they do, help them to get better when they don't perform. Sometimes even like throw them into very difficult situations and help them to succeed, because that grows their self-esteem. And people with a high level of self-esteem are going to be sick less often, are going to perform much better, are always willing to find a solution, no matter if they have help or not. So people perform better when their mindset is strong, and the mindset gets strong by like reflecting situations that they went through successfully, that they were not willing to start like originally without you pushing them into them. So it's kind of like difficult thing, but working with people is nevertheless the most difficult part about any business. That's why a lot of people in the IT world like all these tools and all these technical like infrastructure, because they say, you know what, that replaces a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, guys, also consider it that way. A person who's not fulfilling the expectations, they know they don't fulfill the expectations, and they are also not happy about that. And sometimes they don't have the courage to quit themselves, right? So sometimes it even helps them, because now you push them out of their comfort zone by basically getting rid of them. And now they have to find something else. And trust me, sometimes those people are happy if you free them up, because now they have to get active to find something else. And probably the chances are that they will find something else which they are more happy with, because they were not happy with you anyway. And if you hold on too long to such people, they will anyway, if they get a better opportunity with a better fit, they will leave you anyway, right? So you basically just speed up the process. And in the end, consider it as a help for the person. I mean, if they don't like the job anyway, it's a service to them to let them go as well, and not only to
I fired people, and I told them, you know what? If you like sign this piece of paper that you're like willing to leave that company, I'm going to get you a new job, because I know what you're good at. That's just not something we do here, but I have like a lot of employees that, entrepreneurs that I know. So I'm just going to call them up because I know you are a good person. You're just in the wrong position. So if you if we depart here on very nice terms, I'm going to make sure you're not getting thrown under the bus or whatever. I'm going to get you a new job. I can't promise that it's going to work because it's something between you and those people, but I'm going to give you all the connections, and I'm going to like do a lot of stuff for you. And that always worked out well. So I'm totally with you. Sometimes people are very happy if you just let them go, and it's nothing bad. It's just like in a relationship, most of the time, once you fired somebody looking bad, you're going to say to yourself, I should have done that much earlier.
Yeah. And just stay fair. I mean, every job I departed with, I can still look in their eyes. I can still have conversations. You know, we greet us, we are happy, we send Christmas gifts. You know, like maybe it was just not the right job at that right time. But if you leave on good terms, I mean, again, it's not a bad person in itself, right? It's just they were just not the right fit. So just keep that in mind. You can be human and still fire a person. That's no problem. It's about the business at the end of the day. And you have a responsibility to keep your business running and keep your business growing. And if a person is standing in the way, then you have to make a decision, and you have to make a bold decision and just follow through on that. You cannot have pity here on that end. That's the wrong use of your energy.
Exactly.
Also consider it this way. If a person is underperforming, you affect the entire team. Because if one person is underperforming and you hold on to them, you demotivate all your other employees as well, because they see that person's not performing, and they're like, why should I give 120% if they are not, right? So you also have to consider this. You have to protect your company culture, and you have to protect the rest of your team as well. So don't take it as, oh, I'm so sorry for this person. That is the wrong attitude. I have to protect the rest of my team. And now going back to the team, because I do know that you have a very interesting opinion on how to, I mean, you say that you need strong employees, right, who make decisions. And you mentioned in one of the other conversations we had that you are very much into giving your employees the power. And I think this is also something where many entrepreneurs have a little bit like, split feelings of like, how much power should I give an employee? You know, like many people like to micromanage a lot and try to intervene in all the decisions that people are doing. What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I try to get as far away from the operational part of the business as possible. And that actually led to some things that people ask when they hear about it once, like, have you really said that? And this is probably something you mentioned that you're referring to. Sometimes I called the people within my office because I wasn't working in my company for the last couple of years. I really had them working independently, and I just talked to them every once in a while on the phone or whatever. And they said to me sometimes during phone conversations that they had fired a customer, and I never really asked for details because I thought, all right, if that person or that company was not a good fit anymore, and my team as a whole, like team, like a real team, not just one person, in order as a representative for the entire team, but the team in general came to the conclusion that we don't want to continue doing business with a particular company, they could just fire them, because I said, my team is more important to me than my customers. I will always find new customers, but it's going to be hard to replace every single person within that team. And I want my team to be happy, because if you take care of your people, they will take care of your business, they will take care of your customers, they will take care of your money. So it's basically a very good deal to let go, trust these people more than they are trusted in other companies, because that also like increases their level of loyalty towards you, towards your business, and they change their mindset. Because the more you trust people, the more they are trying to not let you down, and therefore just give them a lot of authority. And that also is in the customer's interest, because let's say the customer is complaining about something and they call your employees, and they know they don't need to talk to the boss in order to like credit a little bit of that last invoice or do something else. That speeds up the process, and problems reported to the company that I've fixed very quickly really increase the bond that you have with your customers. And in order to make that happen, you need to trust your people. And even if they screw it up for the very first time, I always say it's cheaper than sending them to a seminar. Experience needs to be made. You can't talk about experience. Experience is something you need to like go through. You can help to avoid certain level of experience, and you can like artificially create some circumstances that will lead to a certain amount of experience in a certain area, but you still need to push the people through the experience themselves. So just make sure you push them a lot, because if you push them, they grow, and people that grow will ask for less money, because people work for you for money, but they also work for you because they see that it's good for them, their personality, their opportunities in life, and they even work for appreciation and stuff. I'm not just the guy that's would recommend that you walk through your office every single day talking to everyone, telling them what kind of a great job they do, because that's never what I did. I think you're not there to motivate your people. You're there to take away the factors that demotivate these people. Because I believe that you should only work with people that find motivation within themselves, within their work, because that increases the level of identification. And once their level of identification with the job, with the business, with their colleagues, and with everything, they're going to treat it in a different way. They consider it more to be theirs. And if it's theirs, it's more their interest. And they will always find ways to make their interest like perform better or sustain. And therefore invest time in your people, grow them personality wise. That only works if you invest in your personality growth, because you can't have other people grow without growing yourself. You need to lead by example. You can't lead by like threat and torture and stuff like that. I have a military background. I have a lot of leadership experience. I can tell you how not to do it, and I can tell you what works very well. And if you just move like always ahead of everyone else, they will follow. But if you say, you know what, I want this to be a totally different place, but the only thing that's never going to change is me, that's not going to happen, and that's not going to work. That's going to scare your people off, and that's going to leave you with a very small company, or even with no company at some point, because that will also scare off your customers.
So true. I mean, I remember back one story in my very first job when I was an apprentice. So I started like really solid education, you know, and the very first manager pretty much that I had was the accountant. And so she was really good in training the apprentices because she understood the system of, if I train my apprentice well, I can go on vacation whenever I want to, because they are always there doing my job. So she was really good at this. And so the first month I was trained on everything, and there was a monthly run with the invoicing, right? And that run took like half an hour up to an hour. And in that time, I was not supposed to press any keys. However, the first month where I was alone and she was on vacation, I forgot about that. And I mean, a customer came in like immediately when we opened, and the run was still going, and I was starting to press keys, and I was like, uh-oh, something hang up. And I didn't understand what the problem was, because I didn't realize it's the end of the month, right? And so it hang up. I had to restart the run, and suddenly everything was booked double. On top, the print ran to the wrong printer and it didn't end. And I was like, oh shit, everything went wrong. And I was like in panic. I was 18 years, you know, I was in panic. I called him, I was like, oh my God, we have so much money on the account. Like, I hope it wasn't booked off the customers, because I haven't understood how the system worked, and if it was now really at the bank or just a display thing, you know. And I was freaking out because we had 2 million too much on the account. And I was like, and she was like, okay, rule number one, keep our boss away from tying any money into thing. The money is not existing, okay? So keep her away from putting something on an account where we earn interest. The money is not there. Tell her that, because she will be very fast when she sees we have 2 million extra. She will start putting it aside, and then actually we get a fee because we don't have that much money. Then secondly, make sure you have the gap. So know exactly what the difference is, and make sure it stays stable over the next day so that you know where it comes from. And when I get back, I tell you how to fix it. And she was like, then just keep working. First of all, this never happened again. I had to fix it myself. So when she came back, she showed me how to fix it. And because of that, I understood the system better than anybody else, because I had to go in the back end and fix all of that stuff that no other apprentice ever had to do. So that was a massive learning opportunity. And I can just recommend you guys, let your employees fix their mistakes themselves. Don't jump into them.
I had like an apprentice in his first year. I had him call all the customers that didn't pay on time. I just said, you know what, you just call them every single week and you ask them why they're not paying, and that gives you a lot of like training when it comes to communication. It gives you a lot of frost tolerance. It gives you a lot of like understanding of what's critical in a business and stuff like that. And that person was probably not amused in the beginning, but became very great at that point, like at that job, because it's not that difficult. It's just experience. It's not about what you think, how it feels like. It's about knowing how to do it. And if you know it, you're going to like it. That's why people that tell me I don't feel great talking to people, like speaking to them when I'm standing in front of them, I know they've never done that before. And that also applies to sales. If you tell me that you don't like sales, you're just not good at it, because there is no point. There's no one on this planet that is good at something and just doesn't like it. That's just not happening. If you're very good at something, you want to do it like again and again and again. And if you don't feel it that way, you're not good enough. That's all you need to understand. So if you don't like it, the best thing is you like it, you know how to do it, but you understand that from a strategic point of view, it's better to have somebody else do it. That's like the best you can ever get to. And that's like the result of a lot of progress. But sales, a lot of people struggle with that. It's simply a matter of, do I know how to do it? Because everyone likes to be successful in what they do. And if you know how to close deals, there's no chance that you wouldn't do it just because you don't feel like it. Because if you're good at sales, you want to sell something all of the time. That brings me to my book. So in case that you speak German, here's a German book. It contains 55 strategies on how to run your business profitably and sell it to somebody, because this basically contains like everything I worked on within my like business career in the first part of my life, because now I have like different companies. And this book is something that you can also get. That one is also available in English. So if you're interested in the English version of this book, because that one is only available in German, just look at the show notes underneath this recording and reach out to me and say you want to have that book, and I'll make it available to you. Other than that, I just hope you saw or had some value in this, and I hope you do something with this. It's not about liking it, it's about putting and implementing it, like putting into action and implementing it. And I was very excited to be here today. I'll give you like the last words and whatever. And if you liked it and you want to have more of this, just get back to us and tell us, give us your questions and we'll get back to you. But for now, thank you very much for having me today.
Absolutely, it was super valuable. And guys, everything you heard today led to Philip selling the company in a crisis. Okay, so all the pieces you heard today were building blocks of making that possible at the end of the day. And if you want to know how he sold the business, reach out to him and book a coaching with him. If you want to do that, book a coaching with him. Very easy. So
even if you don't want to sell it, even if you don't want to sell it, if you structure that business in a way that you could sell it, you're going to make more money and you're going to have more options available to you. Because like she said, I sold the business within a crisis, not because I had to, but because I could. So always be ready. And if you're not ready yet, let's talk.
Absolutely. And Philip, I mean, again, everything you heard is super practical. This is exactly what he did for the last 20 years. So take advantage of this. I'm going to share contact details and how to reach him, and also the books, of course, in the show notes as always. So thank you very much for being here today. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you next time again.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for this great interview. It was a lot of fun.
What an amazing interview. I mean, now you had two parts. You have all the knowledge in the world you need to get this done. I mean, we really went into all the details, whether this is how do you get started, how do you find your first customers, how can you make sales really simple, how do you pick the right people, what if you have to let them go, right? How do you scale, how important is marketing, all these different aspects we spoke about. Guys, this is super, super practical business knowledge. Apply this. This is real world knowledge. No textbook, no theory, no fluff. If you want to work with Philip, please go ahead, do so. If you want to have his books, I mean, I have his book here as well. So if you want to work with Philip, please feel free to reach out. I will link the links in the video, also in the show notes. So make sure that you get the book, get an insight. If you already say you don't need the book, I go straight to Philip, please go ahead. I'm linking his profiles. He's most active on LinkedIn. So if you have the highest chance to reach him on LinkedIn, but he also checks out his other channels, of course, please don't be shy. Please don't Don't be too proud to ask for help. I mean, this is somebody who can give you really practical business advice in a very short amount of time. He can look at your business from the outside and help you straight away. Don't waste this opportunity. Once again, thanks to Philip for taking all this time and sharing his knowledge. Please reach out to him if you need help. Check out his social media channels. And I wish you a wonderful week. Take advantage, get his book, get in contact, and we see us back next week. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.